Hi there. I've been thinking quite a bit about plot and character lately and how the two are intricately intertwined like the yin-yang of Eastern imagery. So in this video I want to give you some ideas on how to craft an interesting plot that matches your main character and vice versa. Any story stands on two legs. One is the plot and the other is the main character. It doesn't really matter what thrilling story full of twists and turns you cook up if there isn't an engaging main character through whose eyes we can experience it. And without the plot, you just have an interesting character walking around and not much happening. Choosing the right protagonist for your story is crucial. There's a reason why Frodo is the main protagonist in The Lord of the Rings. The story would look very different with Gandalf running the show. It wouldn't be nearly as hard for him. And whatever your story is about, it needs to be a challenge for the main character. I think that's also a reason why Gandalf is written out of the story pretty early. So the Fellowship can't just have him throw some magic around every time there's a problem. You want to create a story that pushes your protagonist out of their comfort zone, urging them to change in some fundamental way. You want to make it hard for them, almost impossible even. Sometimes you get an idea for a plot, but have no idea who the main character would be. Sometimes it's the other way around. You have an idea for a great character, but you're unsure what story to put them in. Here's a little trick for both types of scenarios. If you have a plot but no character, try to think who would be the worst person this story could happen to. If you have a character but no plot, think of what the worst thing that could happen to that particular character would be. Clever. A story example. An axe murderer is loose at the summer camp and there's no way off the island. Worst person to deal with that? Certainly someone not very strong, maybe a young nerdy girl who can't swim. That is of course because you want to keep her on the island and have to deal with the situation herself. Or maybe you have an idea for a story revolving around a grumpy loner with no patience for other people. If you really want to put him through the ringer, you could have him fall in love with the new neighbor or force him into a situation where he has to help someone and strike up an unlikely friendship. Of course, your protagonist can't be totally inept. He or she needs a good amount of charisma and certain skills that come in handy throughout the story. Maybe we only get a glimpse of these talents at first, but we need to get a sense that here is someone interesting enough to want to follow. It needs to be someone who has a fair amount of grit and determination, although it may only be hinted at in the beginning. In the opening sequences of The Hunger Games, we see Katniss Everdeen being very savvy with a bow and arrow to help feed her family. And she has the moxie to volunteer and take her sister's place in this horrific game show, risking her own life to save someone else. These early revelations about Everdeen's character is evidence that even though she is facing insurmountable odds, she is not just some random girl. This pairing or opposition between problems and the person set out to solve them needs to be on your mind throughout writing the script. Every subplot, every new ordeal needs to be perfectly fitted for this particular character. A great, if somewhat corny example of this is when Indiana Jones has to face his own worst fears in The Raiders of the Lost Ark. Although this whip-slinging archaeologist doesn't seem to be afraid of anything, the one thing he does fear is of course the very thing that is protecting the treasure in the Well of Souls. And of course, Indy's fear of snakes is mentioned in the beginning of the film. When you write up your first draft, you may also want to go back and plant talents you may exploit later on in the story. This type of setup makes for a much better payoff later. Alright, hopefully this short video was helpful. Check back here for more videos on writing and drawing. But hey, if you're interested, I have a 7-day comics crash course available for free at my website, comicsforbeginners.com. Just click the link below and sign up to the newsletter. No catch, no hassle, and most importantly, no spam. Thanks for watching, and let's keep in touch.